dudes! PIEGUYRULZ here, and welcome to the recast. I am joined, as always, by the handiest man that I know, MonstersReview.
The recast is my soap opera.
And this week, we are joined by someone who challenged me to a fight after this recast, Noah Spongy.
You take that back! That was the best thing I got on the spot.
And we have, to continue our month of Disney in honor of Disney+, we are going to talk about a show that is very near and dear to my heart, and we're only talking about the best episodes of the show on the podcast, apparently. Gravity Falls. Two very beloved video game-based episodes.
That also have to deal, that mention getting rich.
And Soos's cousin.
And romance, surprisingly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very, very tied together. You know, Gravity Falls only lasted 2 seasons, so they didn't really, heavy rehash anything, but this was definitely an idea that was good enough to use twice, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see how that fares later. But before that, we are going to be answering questions this week. You got questions, we got answers.
Or do we?
But before all of that, Mr. Noah, you have never been on the podcast before. How are you and who are you?
I'm Noah Spongy. I do YouTube videos. Most of it's just anything related to SpongeBob or my particular interest at that moment. A lot of it's Lego stop motion for SpongeBob. I don't know exactly what I do. I just make videos and hope they get views. And
you do whatever you like doing.
Yeah,
There you go.
I like telling stories. I like collecting toys. I like making other dumb things, and people.
You like SpongeBob?
Yeah, and I like just sharing my interests online, and people apparently like it enough to give me 12,000 subscribers. So that's something.
That's the best outcome.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of people start, and that's how a lot of people keep, and that's good, man.
Yeah.
What's your channel?
It's Noah Spongy.
There we go.
Yeah.
How are you doing, sir?
I am doing decently. I woke up an hour ago, so
Okay.
I was in a rush to get showered or something because I was feeling like crap in the morning, or when I woke up. But yeah, I'm all right. How about you?
Thank you. No guest has ever asked me that.
Aw.
Yeah, usually I have to pick up that slack.
If you remember, monsters.
Yeah, if I remember.
Thank you, Noah. I'm doing good. I had a really good weekend, and I had my family birthday party this past weekend. And
Oh yeah.
I'm doing good.
Oh, yeah.
Ordered a DS Lite online.
Apparently we share the same birthday, so yeah.
That is correct.
Oh,
yeah. Bizarre. Very bizarre.
Oh yeah, that's one thing I've been spending my week with, because it was my birthday. I got some birthday money, and I ended up splurging with it because I got a lot, and I ordered a bunch of SpongeBob toys on eBay.
Good, eBay. I like that. Not supporting Nickelodeon.
Yeah, it was a bunch of old ones from Burger King. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're really cool.
Mr. Monstro.
Yes, sir.
How are you, sir?
I'm feeling pretty chapped.
Okay.
What?
It's by that I mean it's sweater weather. I think within the past week or two.
Is that literal? Your lips are chapped?
Yes.
Okay, that sounded like a euphemism for you're not having a good day or something. How are you, sir? I'm chapped. Thank you.
Oh, dude.
No, it's sweater weather. I believe since the last time we've recorded, the temperature where I am has dropped drastically. And now it's time to put on your beanies and your coats, and even some places are having snowfall. I have kind of a love-hate thing with this weather because, there's a certain, really pleasing aesthetic to it. And also, it's nice to kind of wear, these cozy clothes. But at the same time, it's just, tough to deal with on the day-to-day.
I want to appreciate fall more. It's not December yet. Save it for that month.
Noah, don't you know that fall is just something that grown-ups invented?
Stop.
Excuse me?
Do you not know that fall is just something that grown-ups invented?
Well, I'm not a grown-up, so I wouldn't know.
That's fair. No, yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Monsters. I like the cold. I don't like the cold. I can tolerate the cold. But what I don't like is this weird flip-floppy weather where it's one day it's 22
nice.
degrees, and then the next day it's mid-60s. It's what?
Yeah.
I've been getting mostly consistently cold weather, so.
See, I envy you.
It's either cold or slightly normal, but mostly leaning towards cold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a Discord server. I think Noah just joined it, actually.
I just joined it, yeah. Want to make sure I felt like part of it. Yeah.
There you go. We talk about all sorts of stuff. If you want to talk about Gravity Falls, Disney Plus, Toy Story, all sorts of stuff, come join the Recast server. If you want to ask us questions that we'll answer in maybe like 5 weeks, come join the Recast server. Maybe we'll answer more questions next week. I don't know. If we get a lot of good ones, we will. So there you go. Do we have any corrections from last week, or were we flawless?
I mean, I like to think that we're always flawless, but sometimes we're not. Not really corrections. Someone on the Recast server, I believe their name is Hefis. They wanted to confirm that third nipples do exist. They're not just a figment of your imagination.
Okay.
Because they have one. They're a first-hand witness. They're a primary source.
Thank you.
Of course. Early Christmas present. The other thing is that, contrary to what you and Jim said, apparently a lot of people do seem to like those Simpsons promos for Disney. And also, just in general, the streaming thing is still very argumentative and divisive.
Of course. I didn't think I'd solve it last week, but no, but people were respectful, and that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, people consume media differently. Some people have to watch all new episodes as soon as they air, and they need live TV for that. Some people just want to marathon shows all day long. Some people only care about watching stuff they've already watched, like from earlier, before 2008. The important thing is just options, and I think that's what we're getting, so.
Oh, yeah.
And definitely. I know I still need cable for certain things. Nickelodeon's very bad with posting anything anywhere, so like I want to watch some SpongeBob
I think
episodes.
I read somewhere that someone in the comments, I believe, or the Recast Discord server last week said that it sounded like we were shilling for streaming services, like it was almost like a commercial. I found that pretty funny.
I mean, like, what? Listen, I've been heavily critical of some streaming services in the past, and I'm gonna praise the ones that I think do a good job. Like, it would be shilling if I didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
But as a reminder, we do have timestamps in the description of every episode. If you ever want to skip past whatever we're talking about, like currently, there's right down there. You can skip around, and there you go.
Yeah, I know I personally skip past every time I talk.
All right, so we got some questions.
Yeah.
We just got some questions. I wonder who they're from.
Yeah, so first off, we have a question. I'm going right in. We're rolling here.
Yeah.
Yes.
First off, we got a question from Sinoshrub. Does the show still deserve some respect if it does a good job appealing to kids despite having bad writing? And should it still be considered a fundamentally bad show? For example, there are some shows I liked as a kid that I can't stand today, like Johnny Test, ... Sorry, Nintendo. However, this is the question. I didn't say that. That's not me.
Yep.
I would never apologize to Nick for not liking Johnny Test. However, I still feel that some respect is deserved if a kid's cartoon still manages to appeal to at least their target demographic, even if not to every demographic, like many other better cartoons do. This is a very good question, Sinoshrub. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it does deserve respect if it's like doing well if kids like it, but doesn't give me any more reason to like it, you know?
I mean, ultimately, it's a question about how you critique, how you value, how you review something.
Yeah.
For instance, I mean, you have to, regardless of anything else, you have to give Teen Titans Go the credit that it, if not currently, and I think the ratings have dropped, but at one point, it was like the most watched children's cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
And it clearly does have some amount of fan base to continue to get the support that it does. You can completely hate the show and think that it's absolute garbage, but I can still respect the fact that for whatever I don't like about it, it is clearly doing something right, even if I can't place it. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to give Teen Titans Go a positive review just because hypothetically other people do like it.
Mm-hmm.
To go into kind of what Sinoshrub said, like, he liked Johnny Test, or he or she liked Johnny Test when they were a kid, and then got a little older and didn't like it anymore. You heard me talk about Billy and Mandy a few weeks ago, and how I loved that show as a kid, but now I'm definitely a lot more lukewarm to it. And so, but since I had that experience, I have to say, even though I personally can't like be like I love this now, I can still say, well, I had that experience, so clearly there is something to it, even if it's not appealing to me currently. And also, like, nothing appeals to everything.
It's a reason why people shouldn't look to people like cartoon reviewers that are adults for their opinions on cartoons, because, like, dude, they're like, people are very easily influenced by people that have like a strong enough voice in things, and that makes them think that shows that are made for them are bad and stuff. And like I think they should just keep enjoying what they want to enjoy and stuff like that. It doesn't really matter.
We're adults, huh?
Well,
Well,
grown up, out of the demographic at the very least.
oh, of course. And anyone who doesn't acknowledge that is a complete idiot. Like, if you're an adult cartoon reviewer and you still think that, like, these were specifically made for you, or, like, you know, your opinion matters most to Nickelodeon or anything, you've completely lost the plot. You know?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you still can't have an opinion and still can't voice your opinion.
Yeah, of course.
Because just because you as an adult felt that way doesn't mean other people who might also be kids can't feel the same way. It's just that you have to know what something is aiming for in order to fully judge it, I think. And it's part of the reason why I will still never touch The Loud House, because I just feel like it's a show that just completely, I don't know, I'm just too old. I don't get it. Like,
Yeah,
it's not that
I struggle to enjoy it too.
like with SpongeBob, like I kind of know what I like with that show and what I don't like. But with The Loud House, it's just I can't get a clock on it because it's just not. I don't know. Anyway, Monsters, how do you feel?
Well, so no, I can completely relate to that that notion of like loving something as a kid and not liking it anymore as an adult.
Are you gonna confess something about Camp Lazlo?
No. I can totally relate to that, but with the question, looking at it closely, does it deserve respect if it does a good job appealing to kids despite having bad writing? Now, I think there's a difference between bad writing and simple writing, right? Because there's some shows that are made for kids that they don't necessarily have bad writing, but they're simple, they're predictable. I think that's okay. But if it's just all over the place and there was no effort put into it and it just doesn't make sense, that's what I would consider bad writing, and I don't know if that warrants respect.
See, that's interesting. Well, I mean, yeah, first of all, I don't think you necessarily have to respect a show for any reason.
Yeah.
Like, personally. I mean, I was just saying, you know, you should respect, I guess, how popular Teen Titans Go is in a sense. But that's more just acknowledging, like a statistical fact than it is saying, like, I have high regard or respect for the show itself. You know, you personally don't. You need to respect other people's opinion. But you yourself don't need to be like, you know, I respect that Johnny Test went on for 9 seasons and Nintendo likes it so clearly. No, you don't have to do that. Like,
Yeah.
But you also, that is also a good point, Monsters, in that, like, bad writing, of course, is very subjective. But if you wanted to look at it in a less subjective way, that's still somewhat subjective. And look at writing that is, I don't know, like, yeah, lazy. Like, you know, flagrant plot holes and just like I'm thinking of like those toy-based shows from the 80s that are just,
Oh, yeah, like G.I. Joe.
yeah,
Like,
for some of them anyway, the people behind them just did not care at all, and that's bad writing because it's just like literal nonsense. You know, that's not writing that's simple. That's not even like Teen Titans Go's Waffle episode, which is clearly going for something. You know, that's just something that's a little bit more like, if you look at the tenets of writing, if you look at how it's traditionally taught, it kind of breaks all those rules. So it's still subjective, but quote unquote bad writing.
yeah, I mean, it really depends ultimately, I think, with how ambitious it tries to be, because I think the more ambitious you are, the more variables there are to keep in mind when you're writing. And I think when you are going for something more ambitious, it clearly makes it more difficult to keep everything strong. Whereas if you're going for a more basic and simple plot, then I feel like it's a lot easier to avoid mistakes and glaring plot holes and things like that.
Sometimes people are often like invested in more of the pretty visuals or the goofy voices. They don't really focus on like the story and stuff. So a lot of times kids can just enjoy something and then just not really take in anything that's being said at all. So that sort of assists to like, because people will just, kids are easy to entertain in certain ways, I think. So it's like, I guess it explains why people sometimes don't care. They think they can just put whatever on the screen. Kids will still laugh at it, and like sometimes that works. Other times, if it's not like interesting enough, you know, it's just like it's like you have to get a kid invested in order for it to be worthwhile. And like sometimes you can just
You need
put
the attention spans.
yeah, you can sometimes just put a bunch of flashy colors, and that'll get them interested.
Okay. Let's move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So, from a guy named Crystal, we have, do you believe that a piece of art needs any reason to exist, aside from obvious examples like money?
No, not at all.
No.
I hate that term. Like, people say that, like, certain things have, like, people, like, say something that they don't like. They talk about something they don't like, and they're like, it has no reason to exist. I don't get that, because you don't need a reason to exist. Well, let's see. I'm trying to figure this.
I have a very liberal definition of art, and that's that, like, it doesn't need a purpose, and you can pretty much classify anything as art.
It's made, I think it's like sometimes it's a person's vision, and other times it's like made to entertain someone, and like I think everything has a sort of purpose to the, well, man, I sort of jumped into this very badly.
I don't know. I guess it's like how you choose to look at the question, because I would say, yes, it needs a reason, and the reason needs to, at a base level, be that someone wants to create it.
That's
yeah,
the reason.
Theoretically, everything has a reason for existing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I mean, well, but if you're taking away a guy named Crystal's, like, aside from obvious examples like money, like, to use last week's example, Camp Krusty, I don't think that has any reason to exist. It didn't add on to what Camp Krusty was. Now, apparently, and you didn't mention this in corrections, but I did find out that the guy who wrote Camp Krusty apparently also was brought back to write Camp Krustier. I don't know whether that person really, really wanted to, or whether the existing staff like thought it would be neat to get an old writer back for an episode. I don't know. I mean,
but I don't think it needs a reason to exist just to exist, right?
It's very.
What are we? What?
I'm just trying to say, like, you can consider a human being a piece of art, right?
Oh god, we're going really esoteric with this. I feel like this is more in the scope of like the stuff we talk about, not
a creative art. Okay, so
not like thing... is this urinal on the wall art? We don't need to get into that. I've taken that class. We're good.
Yeah, that's where my foundations of creativity come
okay, well, stop. Think of it like, because I assume this was probably written in response to, because I think I said exactly this last week, and that Camp Krustier did not feel like it needed to exist. That's not necessarily, like, did the idea of Camp Krustier as a piece of art need to exist? It's more just like, what we got does not add on in any meaningful way to something we already have. So I mean, just
sometimes if something comes out of nowhere, it's like it's better than it could have been without it. So I mean, ultimately, I don't think you know what I'm trying to say. So,
it's hard. We're talking in abstracts here, and it's really.
I don't think everything needs a justification, or any piece of art needs justification to exist. It certainly reinforces it and adds significance to it if it has a reason to exist.
The reason why I was so initially like mad about the phrase in general, like what I was saying, what I was saying was confusing. It's just like people are often only saying that against things they just don't like. They say like if something they don't like exists, like they just think it shouldn't exist because it isn't good. Because I see that a lot.
I don't know that that's taken literally though. Like just because I say Camp Krusty doesn't need to exist doesn't mean I'm trying to like erase it from the histories of time.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, some things do have like no real use. I do see that.
But it's tough because he's saying, aside from obvious examples like money, and the stuff that I'm thinking of are all, Camp Krusty exists because Fox wants money. That's why that episode exists. Maybe there was some creativity behind it, but from what we saw anyway, it didn't look like someone with a real vision to add on to the lore of Camp Krusty. It looked like, here's like some cheap gimmick we can use to crank out another episode.
Well, ultimately, a figment of appreciating art comes from the merit, and its purpose is a part of that. So, yeah, again, I don't think it's a necessity, but it's something that makes it look better.
And again, I'm going off the assumption this was made because of last week, and maybe it wasn't. But just that's the thing that makes me think, because I think I did say this last week. Camp Krusty, like it's different when you have, because like a television series is art, but it's art that is iterative on itself. So it's like saying, did a sequel to this piece of art need to exist? And I guess it's like, it depends on what the intention of the artist is. If the intention of the artist is to build upon themes that they originally introduced in their piece of art with a new piece of art that complements it, and it fails to do that, then I would say that it is failing its reason to exist.
That's a good point.
What I was trying to say earlier is like every single thing is sort of a building block to a piece of time, like a piece of culture, I think. And like if you take away that piece, then it sort of removes a part of culture, and like I don't know.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm with you on like they shouldn't erase Stark Raving Dad just because there may have been some unfortunate things that came out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess at its base question, in my opinion, art needs a reason to exist, and that reason needs to be that someone wants it to exist. Someone that cares about it enough to make it exist. But by that definition, there is no art that doesn't follow that definition. Yeah. Even people who make things for money, even if they're not a fan of what they're making, they're still doing it for the reason of financial gain.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that was a real question.
That was very complicated. I feel like I screwed up completely, but all right.
I think all of us own monocles now after that conversation.
Yeah, this is very art history 102. Okay, on to something. Nope, not any lighter.
Oh man.
From Christian Goken, our moderator. Thank you, Christian, for moderating and asking us questions. Do you think that the artist's original interpretation is more or less important than, say, a really good idea? I.e., the creator said that they wouldn't want Aang or Korra to lose their abilities permanently, but the potential for good work is expanded upon by a lot. Do you think it's worth sacrificing the original vision for a good idea? I guess just to sum up Christian's thing there, I mean, one example would be
Hillenburg?
Right, yeah. Does it matter what Hillenburg would or wouldn't have thought if Camp Coral is a really good idea, running under that assumption?
And it's not a good idea, I mean.
But if it was a good idea.
If it was, then either way it wouldn't.
Okay, another great example. Spoilers for How I Met Your Mother, the finale, if anyone cares. Don't care, because it's terrible. But I won't tell you what happens in it, but the writers wrote a finale at the end of season 2, and the show went on for like 12 seasons, and they stuck to the season 2 finale, even though all of the all the characters have changed and grown, and things that happened that makes the finale not make any sense in the world that was established further. That is an example of like this original rule that they made that the show has to end this way that just completely holds the series back because it doesn't make any sense. I think you have to be flexible, but of course that's under the example of writers making their own rules and then sticking to their own rules. I think it's a lot tougher when you say the creator has a rule and then some other writer comes in and breaks the rule. Ultimately, good idea is very nebulous. You know, what might seem like a good idea to someone might feel like a really terrible fanficky type thing to another person. But at the end of the day, I mean, if it produces something that's beloved, then no one will care. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
It's like, it depends on what the original vision was and if it would have been good as it was. And like, but like they're saying that they're eliminating it to like replaced by a good idea. And like, I think if it's replaced by a better idea, then that's like a whole thing.
Yeah, this brings into question that whole if it's not broken, don't fix it argument. Because if it's not broken, maybe don't change it. But what if it's not broken, but you can upgrade it?
It depends on how good the idea is in like comparison to what the original was.
All rules were meant to be broken under very, 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 very specific circumstances. Not literally all rules. That's the exception to the rule, is that not literally, don't take Pieguy literally here, and commit some horrible war crimes. But in terms of rules of writing, all rules were made to be broken under the right circumstances. And so my thing is, you need to look at why that rule was in place and why you are breaking it. If you're breaking it because you're like out of ideas, that's not a good enough excuse. If you're breaking it because you want to do a deconstruction of the idea, you know, and I mean to use, I don't know if this was an actual example, but to use Christian's possibly fake example, like Aang or Korra not losing their abilities permanently, you know, you'd have to look at why the creators wouldn't want something like that. Is it because they feel like without those powers, they are no longer the Avatar, and the show has strayed far enough from its premise? Is there some sort of thematic reason that maybe they want to promote the idea that like everything can be fixed with enough time? And I think if you're going for like a thematic thing and then you break that, you have to question, does this further your theme? Maybe breaking it will further your theme. Maybe you show that under certain circumstances, things can't be fixed. In the example of Hillenburg and no spin-offs, I would assume, I don't know for certain, but I would assume, he seemed to be a guy who was interested in actually like just telling a funny cartoon and wasn't looking for his show to become this huge marketing tool that just was like all encompassing. And the whole no spin-offs thing is a way to say, hey, let's not make SpongeBob just do anything. Let's at least limit a certain amount of control to the writing staff of SpongeBob and not farm it out to whoever wants to make a SpongeBob spin-off.
It's all dependent on whether the idea fits the context of the piece of art as a whole, like the best. And I feel like in some cases it doesn't, like even if it's a good idea, maybe it doesn't fit like the idea or intention of everything else that's already been established. And
a good portion of our best ideas have come from problem solving. And when you have a single entity having an original interpretation, that's one thing, and there's nothing to change that. I truly believe that there's numerous examples that you can name where a separate party has came in with a better idea and improved upon that. I mean,
My Little Pony.
Yeah, in television, there's an entire process called development that happens after people pitch their shows, where basically executives and creatives come together and make the show ready to put on television. So I do think that it's important, and it especially if the show is reliant on that interpretation to kind of keep some integrity there. But no, it's very important to have outside opinions and ideas, especially really good ideas, to change that.
Yeah, but Goken is correct in the sense that if Camp Coral, just to use that example again, was like this really interesting idea, I'm not saying that everyone would just instantly be okay with it or not feel like maybe Hillenburg was being snubbed or whatever, but I think there would at least be a lot more understanding and a lot more like wait and see versus everything that's come out about it has been like, we made the characters cuter and we're going to show how they met, even though we've already shown that in the main show and it's going to contradict things. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it would go down smoother, even if it still might have been met with resistance.
You just got to balance your pros and your cons.
Well, because it feels like Nickelodeon's reasoning for Camp Coral is exactly what Hillenburg wouldn't want. Like, another good example, and I talked about this on the recast, there's an episode of Batman, the animated series, called I've Got a Batman in My Basement. And although personally, like, I didn't find the episode too egregious at the time, basically the idea is that, like Batman gets knocked out and these kids take him home and help him fight the Penguin. And it's this goofy episode. And although, like, in a vacuum, it's not so bad, when I went on to watch the rest of the series and I heard the reasoning, they didn't want the series to be this goofy, like, kids superhero show. They wanted it to be mature and they wanted it to feel real and not just like some kids can fight off the Penguin because that eliminates the threat of the Penguin. That doesn't make him feel like a threatening villain anymore when you know, Bobby with the striped shirt can knock him out with Jax on the floor. Like,
yeah,
they were forced to break their rule, and although of course it doesn't ruin the show or anything, but it certainly breaks immersion and weakens the concept they were going for. They had a good reason to keep that rule and bad reason to break it.
Yeah, I guess kind of on the same page as Camp Coral. One of the more prevalent kind of conflicts between creator and I guess corporate entity that we see is over financials. So I guess going back to Camp Coral, we have Stephen Hillenburg's original interpretation and we have Brian Robbins. Now, Brian Robbins thinks that this is a good idea, and looking at it from a financial perspective, it is a good idea because they'll be making a lot of profits. Obviously, ethically, probably not, and creatively, probably not. So I guess to answer your question, Christian Goken, I would say that it's more important, but it really depends on what you're looking for. Because Nickelodeon's looking for short-term profits, and they're going to get that with Camp Coral.
All right. Monsters, would you like to read the next question?
Yeah, this one's also from a guy named Crystal, and the question is, why is it that Disney is so scrutinized compared to so many other media corporations that own almost as much as they do?
Honestly, I think it's just because Disney is very in your face about it.
Yeah.
There are plenty of other companies that like are owned by other companies, but like you'll never hear about it and you'll never know. Like what is it? Like Unilever owns like a ton of things, but
Procter and Gamble.
yeah, Procter and Gamble. Yeah, but like they're not advertising it. In fact, they're intentionally trying to obscure it by keeping the name of the separate brands.
Disney's trying to be everywhere because it's like made for entertainment. It's made for like giving something to the public and like giving something for them to experience. It leads to a lot of the public reacting back to it. You know, it's like an inevitable thing.
I think a part of it, at least for me, is how quick it's been. Like, think about Disney 15 years ago when Michael Eisner was still the CEO, and they were releasing movies like Home on the Range and Brother Bear. Flash forward 15 years, now they own Marvel, Star Wars, and Fox. Bob Iger's their CEO.
National Geographic.
National Geographic. I don't know if they already owned them or not. But in addition to that, they already had like ESPN and ABC. This year is the first year any movie studio has already grossed over $5 billion at the global box office, and Disney's achieved that feat.
Holy cow.
It just seems like it's happened really, really quick, and it's scary because Disney also puts on this impression of, oh, we're this friendly company, don't be scared of us, we're a magical place, when they're kind of swimming up like a shark in Jaws. So... Yeah,
but do you not think that the reason why people aren't as like outraged at like, I don't know, Nestle or Procter & Gamble or whatever that also owns like a ton of random stuff is just because Disney actively advertises that they own this stuff, especially with Disney Plus is nothing but yeah, all this stuff, you know, how would you know unless you did the research yourself?
Yeah, well, I mean, also...
That's why I think Disney
this
is
an obvious
more
thing, but I think people have more of a personal connection to movies and film than they do like deodorant or body shampoo.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you're... Like, but he's asking why it's more scrutinized.
Compared to other media corporations.
Right.
I mean, are there any media corporations that own as much as Disney?
Comcast.
I mean, they have NBC Universal. But on paper, even if they might own as many corporations or as many things, the real cream of the crop when it comes to media in 2019 is IPs. So, all in all, Disney might not have as many IPs, but the value of their IPs is worth a lot more. Like Star Wars and Marvel are worth more than Superstore or 30
Ryan's Toy Reviews. Well, maybe not that one actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean you've got a good point. I mean, just look at the biggest movies released this year. What we got: Toy Story 4, we got Star Wars upcoming, Avengers Endgame, Frozen 2,
Lion King remake, Aladdin
most
remake.
of the big movies this year were Disney. Yeah, Disney's been
I think
everywhere.
it's a lot of
like,
its
especially
cultural significance. Disney, because they have so much power, and that comes with the IP. These super powerful, recognizable properties.
You don't see the company like Procter and Gamble or Nestle being thrown around. They're very like quietly mentioned. Nestle doesn't have its own candy bar. It's a logo at the top of another candy bar. It's like in Procter and Gamble. I thought that was like that's an old company. I don't even know I barely know what they do.
Yeah, I feel like their acquisitions have been more gradual.
Yeah, they're like the tiny logo at the top of another bigger logo. It's like they're not really there to be like an open name, while Disney is a name you've heard millions and millions of times.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, if you look at the box office, I mean, that's just that they owned this year. They completely owned this year in terms of movies.
Yeah, so I guess my answer, simply put, is that even if they own as much as other corporations, I think the fact that Disney has grown so fast, it's made them an imminent threat. And I think how threatening they are has made, and I guess maybe just in general, how large they are as is has made them easy to villainize and scrutinize.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. No, would you like to read the next question?
It's Khalid, right? Khalid 1234.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their question is, will you review a My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episode?
Well, will you, Noah?
Me?
No,
I already did. I did in a video that barely got any views, and I don't really like the show. So,
well, the answer to that is yes. And Kirby Over Yonder asks, worst theme song to a good cartoon?
The Nut Shack, because that's a great. No, I'm joking.
Ready to be offended, Noah?
Oh yeah, you're gonna say SpongeBob, right?
Oh!
Yeah.
It was literally made to annoy parents. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, it's iconic, but I
It's not a
don't
good
like
theme
it.
song.
I
No,
still like it. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
you can like
it
it.
serves its purpose.
Yeah.
It's a sea shanty. It explains what's going on in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Does it though? I mean, he's absorbent.
He lives in a pineapple under the sea.
That's
Bunch
true,
of-
but
His
like...
name is SpongeBob SquarePants.
Stop.
Nautical nonsense.
Instructions on how to get that nautical nonsense.
Trying to think, what's another good example? I don't know, man. Usually, good cartoons also put like a lot of effort into their theme song.
Avatar.
How dare you?
Well,
It's not a theme song.
not a
is
song.
It? It's not a.
But
It's not
that's
even
not
a song.
There's
No,
no
it's just
song.
an intro. It's just an
It's
intro.
a good intro.
Yeah, it's a great intro.
Yeah, but it's not. It's
It's
not
a
theme
great
song.
intro. Is it a good theme song?
It's
Shut up,
not.
monsters.
But,
Get out of here. Oh, hey, okay. If you consider this to be a good cartoon, I'm gonna get hate for this too. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I don't like the theme song. It's
What?
way too long.
Really?
hmm.
Yeah, it's not my thing. Making all the enemies. But what do you guys have
I
to
like
say
the music in it. I liked the couple episodes of the Casa Grandes, and the theme song's kind of bleh.
I mean, regular
It's-
show has a pretty interesting theme song. That's a good
Uh.
show, and its theme song is literally just.
It's just
Yeah.
like someone splatting something on the wall. That's how I interpret that sound. All right. Well, thank you guys for asking those questions. I hope
Yeah.
you didn't get too upset at our answers.
Questions are always appreciated.
Yeah. We will be taking a little break, and when we come back, we're gonna be talking about some digitized Gravity Falls episodes. And we are back. So, are you guys ready for some gravity to fall?
No.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm ready.
Good answers. The first episode we're going to be talking about is Fight Fighters, which is an episode about Dipper accidentally provoking Robbie into wanting to fight him, and instead of just fighting Robbie like a man, he decides to enlist the help of a video game character to fight Robbie for him. Also, Soos puts himself inside an arcade machine.
That's like a 1 second gag.
Also, Uncle Stan has a fear of heights.
Yep. So yeah, monsters, you've now seen 3 episodes of Gravity Falls.
Recently, yes.
What'd you think? Fight Fighters.
It was okay. I thought it was decent. Of the things that I did like, I thought the art style was really cool. I really liked the way that they did the pixelated character.
That was one guy. They actually like brought on this freelance guy that does pixel art to do the pixel art for both this and Soos and the Real Girl.
Well, what I love about it is that it's detailed, but it's also pixelated. So like it clearly looks like there was a lot of work that went into it. Also, of course, you can't make a video game episode without referencing other video games, and I thought that some of those were cool as well.
Paul Robertson, by the way, is his name.
Oh, good on you, Paul
Cool.
Robertson.
Yeah.
Talented man.
This was made in 2012. So, well, actually, this aired in 2012. It was probably made in like 2011. I don't know. I do feel like at this point, maybe like the whole video game episode is like video game references have been done a lot.
This was before OKKO.
Way before OKKO. Before Lakewood Plaza Turbo, even.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I do want to say that I do feel like the novelty maybe is a little lessened, but overall, I really like this episode. How about you, Noah?
I think the episode's funny, but it's also really high energy and fast paced, and it focuses on a million things at once, it feels like. And it makes a bunch of parts of it really forgettable, and it skewed like a lot of parts of it that I thought I remembered. Like, I thought Soos being trapped in the video game thing was a full subplot, and I didn't remember that Stan's fear of heights was even part of the episode.
Monsters, did you get the reference of Soos being in the video game?
No.
So he's stuck in a game called Nort, which backwards spells Tron.
Hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why this episode wasn't as enjoyable for me is because the moment that this fighter comes up and when Dipper enlists him in helping him fight Robbie, I knew that was like the be careful what you wish for thing, and it was gonna escalate and spiral. Like I just kind of like already imagined it in my head, and what happened was what I expected. So
that's pretty fair. Like I don't think this episode story wise is going to be like doesn't have any real twists, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right.
And very much so in the story itself. I don't know. I mean, it seems to kind of be advocating violence in some ways, which is a little strange. But 2012 was a simpler time.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Wendy doesn't like it when boys fight.
Yeah, but they also phrase it as if Dipper's only options are fight him like a man or hide like a baby. Like that, those are his two options. Nothing else can happen.
He stands up to him too, and I guess maybe that's like a good lesson. Where like after the video game dude's gone, he steps up to Rob and he's just like, "Come on, fight me! Like I'll take the punches, whatever." And because he's not wimping out, and there's like he's not running away, Robbie just feels like he doesn't have to do it.
I mean, to be fair, Dipper is kind of creeping on his girl. TBH.
But it's Dipper's girl.
Why?
Well, they're both her boys. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that brings Fight Fighters down is the fact that it's still in that weird arc with Dipper having a crush on Wendy and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
it's too weird. It's not fun looking back on it.
It's normal for kids that age to have crush on older women.
Should it be featured as like a prominent thing in a cartoon? Like, isn't that sort of encouraging it or something?
she's only 3 years older than him. It's not like like a freakish difference.
I don't want to speak on behalf of all of Gravity Falls, but from what I know of it, the show is about like those childhood summers and like kind of capturing that coming of age. And if that is the case, then I think that totally makes sense being a part of it.
Yeah.
I don't like love the Dipper Wendy stuff. Like, yeah, I do think that season 1 spends a little too much time on it. But I honestly feel like a part of it, whether you went into the storyline knowing that, yeah, she's probably too old for him and they're not going to end up together, versus being someone who's just like, it's a will they, won't they relationship, which almost always ends in will they. So they have to end up together. Like, I guess it, what I'm saying is, if you expected it to kind of go nowhere, which I kind of did, I was an adult at the time this episode came out. I think you'll be less disappointed than if you were someone who maybe did actually expect something to come out of it. You'll be more disappointed because ultimately it doesn't. I don't want to say it goes nowhere, but it doesn't necessarily pay off in a big, satisfying, huge way.
I honestly forgot that, like in addition to the other stuff I forgot, I also forgot that it was like Robbie and Wendy focused.
Yeah.
So I only remember that it was like video game character and he does stupid stuff.
Well, because Rumble absolutely steals the show.
He does, yeah.
He's saying poop and butts.
Riboflavin.
Super, mega, turbo, awesome, attack to the extra. Yeah.
Take me to the Soviet Union.
Oh, that's gonna be hard
for a number of reasons.
Both of you kind of spoke on the subplot with Mabel and Grunkle Stan, but
I thought it was funny, but it was just forgettable too.
Well, listen, there is one joke in that is like all-time best Gravity Falls jokes.
Really?
And I wrote it down. Yeah. You don't. All right, listen.
Oh.
Studies show that keeping a ladder in the house is more dangerous than a loaded gun. That's why I own 10 guns. In case some maniac tries to break in here with a ladder.
Oh god, I love that line. That's like one of the main reasons I found it funny.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And the fact
you're right on
the fact
that
there's like these beats between like, it's more dangerous than a loaded gun. Pause. That's why I own 10 guns. Pause. In case some maniac tries to break it. And he also says it in response to Mabel just like throwing out some like innocuous thing like, hey, do you have a fear of heights? He's like, studies show. Ooh. Grunkle Stan's the best. Grunkle Stan is the best. Like,
yeah.
We stan Grunkle Stan.
There's like other good jokes. This is where "Are you acting so cray cray" comes from. You all right now?
What?
I heard an audible sigh.
Yeah, I sighed of laughter. Okay.
Oh, okay. That sounded like disappointment.
And also, you said it wrong. You said it's called a "Why you acting so cray cray." Okay.
Yeah. I said "Why you acting so cray cray."
You said "Are you acting so cray cray?"
All right. Listen. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're correct.
Yep.
If I look at the story, it just really is nothing special, but just all of the jokes and video game references and just the dumb stuff just really make this episode really funny and stand out. And
It does.
the visual style really just elevates it so much because so many other shows are content to just kind of draw a character in a pixel style and just be done with it. It really brings something to it, and just all the things they do, like the little things like Soos trying to hit the health bar of Rumble when they're in the fight,
It's worth a
like
shot.
yeah, I mean it was good job, Soos. He's a what does he call? He calls himself like a you got room for an affable, like a clumsy but lovable sidekick on this adventure. Like he says something like that, and it's like,
Yeah.
Soos, you're great. You're great. Never change.
I wrote down quotes like "Why you acting so cray cray? Stay still. This is as still as I can stay."
Oh, because he's got the fighting pose.
Yeah. Oh, also the Cold War Pact line was really funny.
Oh yeah, hating each other like girls.
Yeah, that's what I got. Yeah, it was decent. Do you think that had I been more familiar with the show, or if I had been watching the episode
No,
before
definitely
this?
This is episode 10, Monsters.
Okay.
Of the show overall. I mean, you understand that Dipper has a crush on Wendy and Wendy has a boyfriend. That's all you need to understand backstory wise. At the time, it really did feel like a turning point for the show, but kind of looking back, story-wise, it really isn't anything particularly great or crazy, especially because there are other episodes early on that are like, there's Dipper versus Manliness, which is another episode about like him being weak and scrawny and like stuff like that.
It's way more fast-paced and energetic than anything that came before it. And that kind of makes it stand out in that way. But then everything after that sort of gets crazier and crazier, so it's like sort of lost in the middle.
And the stories get a lot better too, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we'll get there in a minute, but this is not the only episode with that amazing pixel style. So if that's like your favorite thing about the episode, there is something else out there with the same thing. But I still stand that this is a stand. But I guess I also stand that this is a just a good. The joke with he punches the car because of that one like mini game in one of those fighting games, and then the guy's crying, and then he's like, "That's okay, son. I'll buy you a new one." I love being rich. Yeah, just very funny, and there's definitely a place for something that's just very, very funny. The story definitely could be more. I mean, a lot of it's just a chase scene, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just this really elaborate chase scene.
Like Cheese a Go-Go.
Oh, don't you dare. And I guess it also, how you feel about video game references. If you feel that they're kind of tired and played out, if you don't get them because you didn't grow up playing games, if you love video games and you're super into them, like that's definitely going to affect how you feel about the episode, because a lot of the jokes are about, him finding really dangerous garbage on the street, because that's what happens in every, game where there's like power-ups. It's like there's just a crowbar on the street for no explained reason. This
road has very violent litter.
This is also a pretty violent episode for something that aired on the Disney Channel. Like Dipper towards the end is really beat up. Like they didn't really pull any punches on that.
Robbie almost dies.
That's true.
In the words of Dipper.
I love this is so dumb. Like Wendy believes Dipper's lie that they got wounded stopping other guys from fighting. Like, Wendy is not that stupid. There's no reason she has to believe that lie.
Well, is she this stupid at the beginning of the series?
She's not this stupid at the beginning of the series, but she's this underdeveloped, I would say.
Yeah, that's true.
Season 2 did a lot of great things, like the second or third episode, Into the Bunker.
Second
episode, yeah. That episode basically kind of, I don't want to say killed, but like had major revelation about the Dipper Wendy thing, kind of like slowed that down, gave Wendy a lot more personality, and it involved her more in the action. Because the structure of Gravity Falls is that, like, for a while, it was mostly just like Dipper, Mabel, and Soos encountering these weird things. Stan adamantly denied that there was anything weird going on. And because of that, like, other characters like Wendy didn't really get involved. The only other character that really got involved was Soos. But then season 2 kind of like was like, all right, let's have Wendy get in on it. Let's have Stan get in on it. Let's have other characters. Let's have an explanation as to why the townspeople don't notice the weird things. It's a 2-season show, but like it really did develop a lot in the second season.
It really did.
I do think that Fight Fighters is just a prime example of just how funny the show can be when you just kind of give it this relatively simple setup and just roll with it. Absolutely do every video game reference you can imagine. Have jokes about Grunkle Stan wanting to bet on his grandnephew fighting someone.
Yeah, I think the humor in this episode definitely makes up for the poor story in a lot of ways. Doesn't entirely make up for it, but it's still pretty big.
I'm not gonna say this episode is like problematic, but I am gonna say that it does kind of strike me a little weird. You know, here we are 7 years later, kind of how they portray Dipper's options and things. And I mean, ultimately, like it comes around, and yeah, Wendy doesn't like boys who fight. So at the end of the day, you know, nonviolence does kind of win out, but it's just, I don't know, it's just a little weird how it's framed. It makes sense that Grunkle Stan wouldn't care whether Dipper's fighting someone or not. But you would think that maybe, I don't know, someone else might care. Like Mabel might want him to not, like, die.
I mean, speaking of which, what do you guys think of the B plot and how it ends with the fear inversely switching?
I think the B plot, for as short and kind of basic as it is, I love that it converges at the end, and it's a very simple beat, and it doesn't really mean much. Like I don't think Mabel has that fear in any other episode.
Yeah,
but it was sweet that she tried to help him.
Yeah, it's nice, but also kind of it's fun, but also pretty unrelated. Even though it like kind of converges at the end, it's still like very not connected.
Yeah, but of a lot of Gravity Falls B plots, like I don't know how many of them are too connected.
That's true.
Sometimes they are, like Soos being turned into a pig, which he mentions in the next one. You guys ready to get on to Soos and the Real Girl?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so in season 2, they decide to do another episode in which a video game character comes to life.
Yeah.
And there's a love triangle.
Yep, and the video game character is supposed to help the characters solve their problems, but makes it way worse.
Ooh.
So Soos needs to get a date to his cousin Reggie's wedding, whom he mentions in Fight Fighters, by the way, about, what does he say? He says something like his cousin knew a guy who fought a teenager once. I think he died or something, which is another great line. But anyway, Soos and the Real Girl is about Soos needing a date, and so Dipper and Mabel try to help him meet a woman, and decide to use a video game to help teach him how to talk to women. And that video game character falls in love with him and comes to life and tries to kill him when he finds it like a real woman.
Yeah, she possesses a bajillion electronic things.
Now, clearly, this episode is an homage to Five Nights at Freddy's.
Ha! That's what you think, monsters!
No,
That's
I'm
what
joking.
you would think!
I was joking.
Oh, man.
It's Chuck E. Cheese.
Well, okay, so you'll notice that this episode has a lot in common with Five Nights at Freddy's, which did come out like 2 months before this. Like Five Nights was in August of 2014 and this was in September. However, if you know anything about animation, there was no way they made this episode.
Yeah.
Right. Like in between August and September. This was in the can well before Five Nights at Freddy's came out, and it was just an amazing coincidence that the internet was going nuts for animatronics coming to life, and Gravity Falls has an episode like that.
Yeah.
Do you think anyone back then was like talking about the episode being like, this episode's making pop culture references to Five Nights at Freddy's. It's too cringy.
Well, I mean, definitely people were thinking it, because wouldn't you think of it, like, right? Like it came out the same year.
I mean, we have that knowledge of animation that like it takes 9 months to make an episode, but the general audience probably wouldn't.
Right. And I mean, like, you could also, like, if I had told you that Five Nights and this came out in 2014, Five Nights could have came out in January, and this could have come out in December reasonably. You know, that would have been about a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just a complete coincidence that works out in the episode's favor, I think. Monsters, what did you think of this one?
I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
Things can go astray when you focus your episode on the side character, or an entire series on a side character. But no, I think Soos at heart is a really lovable character. He's troubled, but he's also just kind of a big teddy bear. So you kind of sympathize for him. It was really cool seeing him
come to life in this episode.
Come to life, yeah. And Giffany, I guess. Because she did too.
I remember this episode being like showing Soos in a worser light, but no, it shows like more just he's struggling to really interact with people that he's not really used to, and it's interesting.
You know, I just made a connection in my head Have any of you seen the regular show episode Graveyard Sites? Is that what it's called? Grave Sites?
No.
Maybe if you tell me what it's about.
So there's this regular show episode. I think it's in the first season. Maybe it's in the second. But it's where Mordecai and Rigby have to do this fundraiser, and they decide to host a movie night at the park. So they go to this like VHS store or something, and they come across this like weird haunted tape, and it's like a zombie movie. And they bring it, they project it, and then something hits the projector, and it causes. It just so happens that because it's like this zombie themed thing in the park, they're hosting it in the cemetery. So something like hits the projector, and it causes this beam to project, and it causes all of the bodies from the cemetery to rise up and become zombies. So they're watching a zombie movie while there's actual zombies coming up, and they have to like try to take them out and stuff. That reminds me a lot of this episode's plot, and that it's like an old haunted piece of media, and something comes to life, and it tries to haunt them in a public location.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Song as old as rhyme.
Well, see, Soos is a better side character, a more developed side character, a more likable side character than someone like Sheen. Like, I mean, I think Sheen's a funny character, but like, and I'm pretty sure in the commentary for this episode, they talk about how they had to be very careful with Soos because in this episode, if they wrote it like slightly differently, Soos could come off as really creepy, right? Because ultimately, like half the episode is him scaring women off.
I remembered him being more creepy. I don't know why.
Well, because he is, but out of context. Like when Giffany shows up, he's like, "Hey, you want to take this date far into the woods where there's no people or electronics around?" Like, right? That's a creepy line out of context.
Your face is good. I'm a Soos.
Yeah, a woman. I love the way he says that. That sticks with me forever. But yeah, no, like they make him lovable, and you see his side, and he's never trying to be intimidating or like cringy. He is just genuinely not sure of how to act around women, and it makes him lovable. But yeah, no, I mean comparing him to like a Sheen or something, like, you know, Soos has flaws, and he has like The Land Before Swine is a great episode that talks about Soos's flaws and who he is and how he's essentially more than like a Patrick Star.
Yeah.
He doesn't exist just to be a stupid character. He also has a really soft side.
He's there to help. He's a fix-it person.
Yeah, there we go.
Sheen destroys everything in his path.
Yeah. And now, granted, I don't know that I would watch Planet Soos, but I will say I would definitely be more watchable than Planet Sheen. But yeah, no, Soos is great in this episode. Absolutely.
Yeah, he is.
You know, something else this episode has in common with Fight Fighters is that it has a Gorkelstan subplot that's very short, but I think it's very sweet. I love Gorkelstan's subplot in this episode.
Yeah. The end credits thing with the statue is especially like a highlight of that.
Yeah. So if you don't know or don't remember, Gorkelstan has this old like it's like a mechanical amusement thing. Like you put a coin into it and it like does a little thing. It quote unquote pans for gold. It like smacks the pan against the whatever. Except like it's ancient, just like Gorkelstan. And so it like it bleeds oil in front of children. And so Gorkelstan decides to get into like Chuck E. Cheese style animatronics, but is told that animatronics is a young man's game. And so he decides to try to steal one, but unfortunately steals one just so happens when Giffany is bringing them all to life, which is I think is a better convergence of the subplot and the main plot. Really clever. And then, of course, like, through just strange circumstances, his old panhandling thing saves him. And then he goes to Vegas with it in the credits.
We're going to Vegas, baby.
Yeah. Getting married.
This was a great idea.
Oh, God, yeah. Very, very funny subplot. And that takes up, like, 4 minutes in the episode, if that. Very short. But yeah, so Giffany. Like this episode definitely does not have many video game references, right? Like it references dating sims, But beyond that, it is very much more about the story of it than Fight Fighters is. I think there's like some very easy comparisons to be made because Fight Fighters was like, let's relish in all these video game references, whereas Soos and the Real Girl, though it certainly has references, you know, and is about a video game character, it's much more into just its story.
Yeah, and I think that does help it, though it kind of brings down like how enjoyable the video game character is in comparison to Rumble Mixed Skirmish.
You don't like Giffany as much?
She has some interesting stuff, but she's not really played for laughs. That kind of makes her less interesting.
She's kind of like Barry from Foster's.
She's well, you say that, but they're both tsunderes. It's a type, it's a thing in Japanese media. Where, like, you know, sweet woman, angry woman, sweet woman, angry woman. One thing that's very important to note is that when Soos goes to return the game, he doesn't bring the case back, and I find that really disrespectful. Beebly Boop's got enough to deal with in this economy when people are buying digital games.
Well, I mean, maybe not in wherever Gravity Falls is located. Because, you know, it's a little bit more remote. I do know.
That's a joke again. Again, just in case anyone doesn't get that.
Yeah.
That guy's joking.
As the DVD aficionado resident of the recast, I do know that the last blockbuster on Earth is located in Bend, Oregon, which I guess you can consider the Pacific Northwest.
Interesting. Well, the Gravity Falls takes place in Oregon.
Oh.
We should have done an episode about that.
I like Giffany. No, I think that the shtick works because she is legitimately, like, sweet and then, like, really creepy. Really creepy.
I think that works. Like, I think she's a fine character as like a villain, but like Rumble's funnier.
I mean, no, I will 100% give you that. Rumble is definitely funnier.
I don't know. I'm more into the episodes for the humor.
Rumble's like unaware that he's a villain, or like not like a villain, but like Rumble's
an anti-hero because of Dipper's actions. Like that. I think that's another difference too. Is that Dipper was very malicious. Not malicious, but definitely had self-serving interest in bringing this character to life. He doesn't want Robbie to get hurt.
Thinks that Robbie killed Dipper's dad.
True. Yeah. And all Rumble knows is fighting. You can't blame him, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, like with Giffany, Soos doesn't. It's not really Soos's fault, and his only flaw was that like he's getting too into like the virtual girl idea versus actually getting out and meeting people. But that's more of a problem. It's like a self problem versus like a fault, you know?
Right. She says that like I don't remember the instance exactly, but she says like I was programmed this way. So but like even if she is like some sort of artificial intelligence, she still seems aware of the fact that what she's doing is wrong.
Oh yeah. She definitely murdered a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Rumble didn't do that yet. I mean, he almost murdered a 12-year-old boy, but that's, you know.
The last person who had it seemed to have returned it because there was a post-it note on it that said, like, destroy at all costs or whatever.
Yep.
That's fair. I love the name Beebly Boop, by the way, for the video game store. And also, the store that Soos's girlfriend is at is called Meet Cute. Anyone get that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Romantic comedy stuff.
I mean, it's the same guy that did the sprite work in both of these.
Yeah.
It's tough to compare because I really do like the style of Rumble, like what they did with him in particular, because he like really encapsulated like a fighting game character, whereas Giffany is able to kind of move a little more freely.
And also, they did more with the guy's work. Like, they didn't just do the character. He did like other pieces of art, and like he did the end credits sequence thing too.
For Fight Fighter?
For Soos and the Real Girl.
Right, yeah. But yeah, my favorite shot, one of the really cool things about Soos and the Real Girl is some of the cinematography, and the shot where Giffany, who has possessed the robot, the animatronic, walks along the arcade games, and you see Giffany sliding along with her. That's a really cool shot. Yeah.
Oh, the
really
cinematography is
really
great.
cool.
It really helps like the horror kind of aspect of it.
Absolutely. And it's also like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Gravity Falls does horror like relatively frequently, but I don't know. I would not have expected when I watched the episode for the first time that the episode was going to take like that dark a turn.
Yeah,
like clearly something's up with the video game, and there's definitely like menacing stingers whenever like they show Soos leaving and like the game's still on or whatever. So like something's coming, but I don't know. Just I love what they did, and I love how they incorporate like the Chuck E. Cheese or whatever. And even though it's not referencing Five Nights at Freddy's. Obviously, there is something about animatronics being very creepy that is like embedded in the zeitgeist of humans. Just like how no one likes clowns. Animatronics, when they're cheap, are very creepy. And so it's really cool that they kind of tapped into that, and it definitely works really well. And I also think that there's something really poetically nice about how, like, Soos needed a girl who was like him. Like, that he could take her to, like, a Chuck E. Cheese type place is perfect. Like, they didn't try to give him, like, here's some, like, super hot lady. Like, it's like, no, she's a girl that's just kind of like him.
Yeah. I do like that about the episode. The Melody character's nice.
Yeah, Melody's great.
I guess this is a spoiler for anyone listening. I personally don't care in asking this, but does Soos's love interest reappear?
Yes.
Yeah, she's in the finale, I think, in person. It's like the ending montage while he's like doing, like, Dipper's doing the final monologue or something.
Yeah, she never becomes important again. I'll say that. But she's also in another episode. You see Soos video chatting with her as like an opening to an episode. I don't remember what episode. So she's not forgotten.
Right. Well, I mean, at least they keep her. I was just really like wondering at the end because obviously she says that she's like moving to Portland or whatever. So, I just want Soos to be happy, even though he's a cartoon character.
Oh man, you love Blendon's game. It's poor Soos. I have to go to the bathroom for a long time, not in a weird way. It's funny. It's definitely Soos and the Real Girl is definitely funny.
Not as much rapid fire jokes, but like still a lot of strong jokes.
Right. I mean, stuff like Soos's grandma like coming out of the ball pit. Like, were you in here the whole time? Soos's life is my soap opera.
A couple of things. I love it first when I don't remember exactly. I think it's in the cold open, but I don't remember if it was Dipper or if it was a collective thing. But somebody says, "You ever wonder what Soos does once he like after the Mystery Shack?"
No, not
it's
at all.
almost like they're like acknowledging like the setup of the episode.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then also in the Chuck E. Cheese type place, there's a figurine of sorts or like some sort of prop that looks just like Pizza Steve from Uncle Grandpa.
Yep. It's again most likely just coincidence.
Yeah, it's a pizza with sunglasses.
Hey Noah, you ever wonder how Patrick gets ready in the morning?
Rise and Shine was funny. I don't care.
You ever wonder what it's like when SpongeBob and Patrick wait?
You ever wonder what happens when Sheen gets blasted off into his own planet? There's a lot of really like cute touches to this episode. Like Mabel's got a sticky hand at one point, and Melody like itches her legs because she shaved her legs because she's going on a date. Like just little touches that like do not need to be there in any way, but it's just like I love the attention to detail on this show.
Oh yeah.
I don't know which episode do you guys think is funnier?
I think Five Pirates is funnier.
I mean, I feel like there's more jokes in Fight Fighters. Yeah.
It's definitely more comedy oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I feel like it's in Soos and the Real Girl. It's less like set up punchline jokes.
Yeah.
And more just like you laugh when you see Soos act like an idiot in front of girls.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another great exchange of Soos's grandma's like, I want to make sure you're taken care of before I go and live with the angels. And with Grandpa.
He is not there.
yeah. And the thing can had pen. Oh, you can't undo who you are. Yeah, no, I definitely think it's a really tough one. I think Fight Fighters definitely has more jokes. But I think Soos and the Real Girl is kind of funnier, in part because it is a lot more diverse in the jokes it tells, and it is,
There's more contrast, I think.
correct, because it's a darker, more story-focused episode. When it does tell a joke, it hits a little
It
harder.
hits harder.
Than,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a point at which, like, Mabel's just having Rumble read off funny words, which is, it's funny, but it's more like, yuck, here's a joke.
Yeah.
I totally see where you're coming from. Fight Fighters is also a funny episode.
I think the jokes in Five Fighters are more memorable, and that's why it sticks with me more.
That's fair.
It's like with Soos and the Real Girl, I just don't remember enough jokes.
Mm-hmm. And I do think that of the two, the gun in the house joke is the best of the two. Like, just of any jokes in either of these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Of note, Giffany, or wait, is it Giffany? Giffen.
Okay.
She's voiced by the same woman who voices Flame Princess from Adventure Time.
Oh.
Oh.
So
Isn't that Jess DeCoccio? Isn't that her name?
I could say no
Sure.
because no matter what her name is, you said it wrong. But you can look that up, please. Yeah. So apparently she's got a penchant for playing fiery characters.
Yeah, Jessica DeChico.
Chico,
DiCicella? Okay.
DeCico? DeKiko?
The Chico sounds more like.
I'm usually good with pronouncing names, okay?
Hey, Monsters. Yeah, I know you're better than me. Did anyone important play Melody?
Jillian Bell did. Okay, I know Jillian Bell. She was on Workaholics.
Oh.
She was in Bridesmaids.
She wasn't really a funny character in the episode.
No, but she is a funny person.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, that's why that kind of surprises me because yeah, it sounds like she's a comedian if she's in comedian focused things like Bridesmaids. Like I like Melody. I'm not complaining about her, but they definitely did not make her the funny character. She's the straight man. Like she's
She
no.
voices Mandy on Bob's Burgers, if you know who that is.
No.
I don't.
You know who else voices a character on Bob's Burgers? Christian Shaw, who plays Mabel.
Hey.
Whoa!
Oh, it all comes together.
Also, speaking of voice actors, Brian Bloom played Rumble McSkirmish, and he's a common voice actor for video games.
Nice. Oh, that's
Mostly-
cool.
Mostly FPS games, not fighting games, but still
Oh.
video games.
Jillian Bell is also a series regular on Bless the Hearts, the new Fox animated sitcom.
Okay, we can move forward. All right, so then which of these two episodes? What do you guys think? What's the comparison? What's your final verdict? Which ones do you like more?
I think Soos and the Real Girl is like the better episode in terms of like story and characters and stuff. But Fight Fighters is also like the funnier one in my opinion. So I'll just go with Soos and the Real Girl because like it's funnier.
Okay.
I mean, more entertaining overall.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I think Soos and the Real Girl has both. It has the comedy and it has a story. Soos is a very lovable character, and getting one of a few episodes that really focuses in on him was perfect. And as we've mentioned, there are times when focusing on the side characters can turn out disastrously, and instead he turned out to be a really strong asset to the show. And yeah, no, Fight Fighters. It's a fine episode. It's a really funny episode if you want a good video game referencey episode. If you want an episode that has good pixel art and you know, just has a lot of jokes after another, that's a good episode. But it really does kind of feel like Soos and the Real Girl took everything that Fight Fighters did and then just kind of one-upped it just a little bit. But yeah, though they're both very solid episodes. How about you, Monsters?
If it wasn't obvious already, I'm gonna go with Soos and the Real Girl. It's not that I didn't like Fight Fighters. It's just that it was underwhelming to me. And I mean, I appreciate all the video game things. I can't say I'm much of a video game player myself, but like
Me neither, but yeah.
But no, I still appreciate everything that went into it, especially that pixel animation of Rumble. I thought was really cool. But no, Soos and the Real Girl, yeah, it made me care about these characters. Soos Ramirez is god tier. No, I guess I feel like there's a lot of variation in this episode too when it comes to just like locations and things going on.
I don't know that we ever go back to that mall, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know. I like malls. 16. No. But yeah, that I thought it was a really good episode. I'm going with Soos and the Real Girl.
Okay. And also, I'm sure someone in the comments will say it if we didn't. Rumble McSkirmish has a cameo in Soos and the Real Girl where Giffany just like destroys him.
Yeah.
I was very tempted to be lazy and just use that as the thumbnail, but I did not.
We got a viewer comment from Sparky, and they say, it's a hard choice, but after rewatching both episodes, I have to say I like Soos and the Real Girl more than Fight Fighters. First reason is I have to say I like the subplot in Soos and the Real Girl more than the one in Fight Fighters. More importantly, though, I can't love Fight Fighters as much as the other episode because I never found the Dipper versus Robbie rivalry to be all that interesting or funny. But I love Soos and the Real Girl because of how creepy and fascinating Giffany is.
Very well said.
Yeah.
All right, so are you guys ready for some trivia?
Oh, yeah.
No.
So, Disney Plus has been released by the time this recast episode comes out.
I'm ready now. Okay.
Okay, good. However, at the time we're recording this, it's not quite out yet. But I thought to prepare for it, we could do do a little game of whether or not it's going to be on Disney Plus launch day, according to Forbes. So if this list had changed, like when the actual release comes out, like don't at me because I have no way of telling the future. All right.
Sounds good.
So yeah, so I'm going to say 5 movies or TV shows, and you guys are going to have to tell me whether you think it's on Disney Plus day 1 or not. And Monsters is going to go first, and then Noah's going to go. All right.
All right.
Since this was a great question a few weeks ago, the first when I needed a good random show that I don't think anyone had seen, maybe Noah's seen this show, I'm not sure. I don't know if it'll help you. Hulk and the Agents of Smash. Monsters goes first.
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
I just feel like it's like a disposable piece of programming that, like, you know, like, why bother putting it day 1? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with them.
So you're both saying it's on there?
Yeah, both saying yeah.
Yeah.
You guys really think that they'd spent time making like a little poster picture or whatever and putting it in the UI?
I feel like I've seen it. I don't know.
Yeah, you guys are correct. Hulk and the Agents of Smash will be on
Yay!
Disney Plus day 1. So enjoy watching that show, everyone? Question mark.
And it's great titles.
All right, you're both tied for 1. DuckTales, the current show.
No.
Monsters goes first. It's okay.
Well,
You know what? I'll also say no, because I'm like 90% sure that the original is going to be on there. I don't know, because the original is currently going. I did hear that they removed a bunch of stuff on Disney Now, and I'm pretty sure that was on there. But launch day, I'll say no.
Okay, and Noah, you sticking with no?
yeah, people were talking about it. It wasn't in the list.
Yeah, it is very curious that it is not on the list. You guys are 2 for 2. Good job.
Hey.
Post-production Pie Guy chiming in to let you know that DuckTales 2017 is indeed on Disney Plus. But since they had the same answer anyway, it's not like it actually really affects the score. High School Musical 2.
Better hit up 24 Frames of Nick about this one.
Oh god.
I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna say yes too.
All right, you guys are 3 for 3. I was hoping I could trick you.
Hey.
I don't know.
No,
Maybe
that was an actual decom. Like,
yeah, no, I know.
High School Musical 3 was theatrical, but
National Treasure 2, Book of Secrets.
you know, I gotta say yes on this one because I know that Buena Vista, who Disney owns, distributed and produced that movie.
Okay.
And I also love Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
Oh, that's the live action. I was mistaking that with one of the Disney animated movies. Okay.
Dude, I wish they had made an animated like series of Nicolas Cage.
We need the Declaration of Independence.
I was thinking of Treasure Planet.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
I thought they made like a direct-to-DVD sequel.
Every week they could find some map on some other, like, you know, there's a map hidden inside the Liberty Bell. There's a map on the inside of Einstein on Thomas Edison's light bulb.
What's this? There's a map inside Abraham Lincoln's locked off tomb.
I'm gonna say no because I don't know. I don't think I've seen that on the list.
All right, Monsters is correct. It is on there.
Dang it!
Yep.
I should have just agreed. But a sheep.
And strangely, it's the only National Treasure. Number 1 is not.
Wow.
Oh.
Yep. So Monsters has 4?
4.
And Noah has 3. Well, in honor of my favorite show, Secretariat.
Like the horse?
Who?
I can tell you no more details, my friend.
I'll say yes.
I'm gonna say no.
Monsters taking home with 5 out of 5.
man.
I have no idea what this show or movie is, but it's called Secretariat, and I assume
I think it's a movie about a racehorse.
It's 2010 Secretariat.
I thought we were going for like a pattern here. Yes, no, yes, no.
No, we don't do patterns.
You never know.
I always try to trick everyone. Next week on The Recast, continuing with our month of Disney Plus, we are going to finally be talking about the DuckTales reboot. It took me a while to scrounge through episodes to finally find two that are really worth comparing, because even though there's a lot of similarities between the two shows, and the 2017 show definitely builds upon ideas presented in the original show, very rarely do they do an episode that's just kind of a straight up retelling. And even in the case of these episodes, they're certainly different episodes, but they have a lot in common. The episodes are going to be The Curse of Castle McDuck from the 87 series, and The Secrets of Castle McDuck from the 2017 series. Both episodes about Scrooge, the boys, and Webby going back to Scrooge's homeland in Scotland, exploring a castle, and facing off against an evil dog. So join us next week for that. Noah, thank you very much for being on the recast.
Thank you, Noah.
It was my pleasure. Man, this was cool.
And thank you, Monsters, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for being here, too.
All right. And with that, Noah, is there anything you want to plug real quick?
Buy Gravity Falls complete series on DVD.
Buy it on Blu-ray.
Yeah, we're HD folks in here.
Yeah. PIEGUYRULZ out.
See ya.
Catch you guys next time.